The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whenever you may be, wherever you may be. This is the Claire's Corner program along the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And the program's been on hiatus for a while, but I'm hoping to get back to at least doing occasional specials. And this is the first of those, and welcoming back a guest that has been on the program twice before, but I get to introduce her in a different way now, and it fills me with joy to welcome to the program the daughter of National Baseball Hall of Fame member Gil Hodges. Irene Hodges, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much, Claire. That's a beautiful introduction. I said beautiful introduction.
Thank you. So, I imagine most people listening to this program know about Gil Hodges, but if you don't, a very quick introduction. He was the first baseman of the legendary Boys of Summer Dodgers, who dominated the National League for more than a decade. He was an amazingly consistent hitter, among other things. Finished the 1950s with the second highest number of home runs and runs batted in, and I think it's fair to describe him as a quiet but commanding leader. He retired from active play in 1963 and went on to a career in managing, first with the Washington Senators, then the New York Mets, and he led those 1969 Mets 100-1 underdogs at the start of the season to the World Championship, one of the most memorable moments in baseball history, and certainly my first great baseball thrill as a 10-year-old fan. So, after his retirement, he went on the Hall of Fame ballot with the writers and came very close to election, but didn't quite get there, and then he's been considered several times by subsequent veterans committees, but again, just didn't get quite over the top. He amassed more votes than any Hall of Fame candidate who was not elected, and was also the only candidate to top 50% and not be elected. And I'm so glad that those distinctions are a thing of the past. So, Irene, late last year it was announced that your dad was going to be on the Hall of Fame ballot again. And what was your thoughts, frame of mind, when you first learned that?
Honestly, I believe my family also, we became almost immune to it. It always sounds nice. It's always something we've wished for many years. But, in the past, there'd been so much apprehension and so much thought. That didn't happen this year. It was, my mom is not well, so she didn't even know that they were having the voting at that time. So it was very low-key. It was, in past times, my children and myself would come to my mother's house and wait, thinking that it would be the day that he would get in. But we didn't do that this year. It was just very different. It was very quiet. And we thought about it, but we didn't give it as much thought as we have in the past.
Interesting. Yes, I remember a story that I believe it was in 2009. The Mets organization contacted your family the day before the vote, and for some reason they felt there was such certainty he was going to be elected then that they were all set to bring your family to Shea Stadium for a press conference, but sadly that didn't happen.
Yeah, that was a very sad one. They had sent limousines for us. We were all at my mother's home, and when we found out that he didn't make it and they had to turn the limousines back and we were all dressed to go, that was really very heartbreaking.
Oh, I can only imagine. So, last December, when the vote results were announced, where were you? And I assume you were listening to the news conference live. And what was your reaction?
I had been called from the Hall of Fame to say if he should get in, that a call would be coming between 5:15 and 5:45 before the announcement was made on MLB as a courtesy to the family. And but it was just my mom has not been well, and I've been with my mother for almost 3 years now, and I was here taking care of her, and when the phone rang, and I never thought, I didn't even give it that much thought, because I guess it was probably close to 5:30. But I had my phone with me. It's not like I wasn't in ear's reach. But
sure.
And there was a number on my phone that I didn't know. And I said, that's strange. I don't really know if I should answer it in case the Hall of Fame is calling. But I did. And, those words will stay with me always. When Jane Clark said, this is Jane Clark Forbes from the Hall of Fame, that was it. I completely lost it.
Go ahead.
No,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I heard her say, it is my honor, and it wasn't registering. It was like, oh my God, are you kidding? After all this time? Really? And I was just hysterical. I honestly couldn't control myself, and I felt terrible because after you speak to her, Josh Rawitz, who is the president of the Hall of Fame, got on the phone, and I didn't even know he was on the other end of the phone, and for a long time he would introduce me when I went up to the hall or other places as the person that held the record for crying the most when she got the news. So it was really an unbelievable time.
Yeah, I just can't begin to imagine. I mean, there are so many friends and fans who were wanting this to happen and were overwhelmed with joy, but as his daughter, I'm speechless trying to capture the words, what that must have felt like.
It was, and honestly, after I got through that, and she was so sweet, and she's such a lovely, lovely woman, and she was so kind, and she said, I'm so happy for you, and I'm so happy for your family. And all I could think of is my mother, who didn't even know they were voting that day. And I asked her if she would be kind enough. I wanted my mother to hear it from her. I didn't want to tell her myself. I wanted her to hear it from Miss Clark, and she did. She said, yes, of course. And I told my mother what was happening, and she said, oh, my Gil. So I said, yes, Daddy is finally in. And she was so kind to tell her. And unfortunately, the state my mom is in is not the best. So for a few minutes she was happy, and then it was kind of lost on her. But I was so thrilled that she knew. So it couldn't have happened better at that time.
Exactly. But how many fans did I see or hear say it happened? Well, she was still with us to become aware, and that must have been, that's quite a blessing.
It is. It was just an enormous thrill, not only for my family, but so many people, as you know, love my father. It's just unbelievable. And I was so happy for all of those people that have loved him for so long and worked for him to get into the Hall of Fame. it was for everyone. It wasn't just for my family. It was for everyone.
Yes, yes, indeed. So let's talk about the induction speech and how it was maybe first that you came to write it and be selected as the one to present it.
Well, I was there representing my mother. Of course, my mother could not make it. And so I was there representing my mother. I've taken care of my mother for a number of years now. And the hall was nice enough to say, to agree with that. Writing the speech, well, it's Eric Sherman, who is a dear friend of mine. He was kind enough to offer to help me with the speech, which he did. And I have a very close cousin, Adrian. So the three of us kind of worked on the speech. I took out things that I wasn't comfortable with. I put in things. It's so different with the people who were inducted who played baseball than writing a speech from someone that didn't play baseball and was speaking as a daughter, not as a ball player. So that's mainly what I tried to bring across. I wanted them to understand he was a great player, without a doubt, but he was an even greater man. He was a tremendous father. He was a tremendous American. He was so many things, but I wanted them to hear that from me.
And we did. Just absolutely a magnificent speech in every aspect. You fulfilled all your goals and then some. Had you ever really given a public speech like this, especially to a large audience?
I've never given a speech about my dad at all. This was my first speech. Definitely a lot of apprehension, a lot of anxiety. And but I knew, I practiced, and I wanted it to be, I wanted it just to be from my heart about my dad more than anything. And I believe he helped me get through that.
I would imagine so. I read, I think, one press article quoted you as saying that you had even slept with the speech at one point.
I had the speech
is that correct?
I had the speech on my bed, I had the speech in my car, and I had the speech in my pocketbook. So if I'd wake up during the night, I'd go over the speech. I was so nervous. Because I wanted it to be so good. And for months, I was like that. I was saying that speech in my sleep.
Wow.
So it is true.
And talk about a large audience. Not recently, or fairly recently, I came across an item on Facebook about the 1971 induction, which included Satchel Paige and others, and it said the ceremony was held before an audience of about 2,500 people, and the news accounts I've seen of the induction last month estimated the audience at 35,000.
Yes, that's what I heard also. And it's scary to stand up on a platform, which you've never done before, and look out and only see people as far as you could see. And it's almost heartwarming. It's just, oh my goodness, they're here for many players, not just for my dad, but they're here for my dad also. So as intimidating as it was, it's also very heartwarming. Like you wanted to connect with them. So
and I think you were, I'm sorry.
No, I'm done. That's how I felt.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think you really, again, carried that off beautifully. I'm thinking back to the television broadcast. I don't know. Have you gone back and looked at the recording?
I saw it once.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I have I have two girls, and I have grandchildren, and we have a group chat, that we all connect on.
Mm-hmm.
And my children put it on that, and that's the only time I saw it. So, because I find all the things wrong with it, of course.
Oh, yes. Well, one thing that stood out for me, and I think for a lot of other folks, was the close-up of Jay Horowitz, the longtime Mets public relations director and a close friend of your dad and mom, crying. And a whole lot of people said, hey, he's representing all of us and the powerful, wonderful emotions we're feeling on this day.
I don't have enough words for Jay Horowitz, and that comes from deep in my heart. My mom has, as I said before, has been pretty much bedridden for 3 years. Jay Horowitz and Linda call my mother every single day. Every single day. Hi, Joan, how are you doing? We're just checking in on you. We love you. You're watching the game. Watch the game. It's a good game today. Every single day. And besides that, Jay goes out of his way to do anything he can for my family. He's an incredible, incredible human being, an incredible man. So
that's wonderful to hear. So, I understand your mom's in poor health, but is she watching, following the Mets at all, and aware that they're having a banner season?
My mother watches Major League Baseball 24 hours a day.
Ah.
And if the Mets aren't on, she's watching MLB, and she'll watch whatever games they have playing. She loves baseball, and she watches it all the time.
Always in her blood, huh?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, she loved baseball before she even knew my dad.
Right. I think I remember an interview I did with your brother many years ago, and said she may have known more about the Brooklyn Dodgers than he did when they first married.
Yeah, he marched to Ebbets Field. She was a tremendous. Loved the Dodgers. Absolutely loved the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm. Would you mind talking a little bit more about their relationship, their love for each other, their love for their children, and what made it really a special love story?
Well, baseball life has a lot of sacrifice. As good as it was, and as much as a blessing as it is, it also comes with a lot of sacrifice. A lot of road trips. My mom was mother and father many, many times. And they had a mutual respect for each other, great love for each other. And they loved their children. They were very good parents.
That's nice to hear. And one of my Facebook friends who has been a steadfast admirer of your dad before, almost from the time she was born. I believe she was born during the 1955 World Series, which you could maybe call some almost foreordained, but Lou Patterson Cisco. And one thing that she always remembered and was thrilled when finally she came across a picture of it, that after your dad would hit a home run, he would blow a kiss to your mom in the stands.
Always. Oh, as soon as he passed home plate, he'd throw a kiss to my mother. Absolutely. And I remember growing up, of course, there was no cell phones or things like that. My dad would write my mother every day from a road trip. And I remember those envelopes coming every single day while he was away. He would write to my mother.
Oh wow! I hope she's saved those letters. I imagine she has.
I have not seen them in many years, but
Oh.
I don't know.
But that would be something to be cherished, and of course for the content, but also he had such beautiful handwriting. You know, on our Facebook Gil Hodges page, from time to time when somebody posts his signature, inevitably somebody says, what beautiful handwriting, and too bad the players today. If you get a squiggle for a signature, you're lucky.
Yeah. Sometimes I have baseballs that I'll say, do you know who this is? Because I have no idea who it is. My dad, and I think most of the older players wrote clear, but, they weren't in such a rush. They were happy to sign. So my dad did have an exceptionally beautiful handwriting, for sure.
Yeah. So we touched on this briefly, but maybe if we could talk a bit more about the amazing love and support from fans through the decades. There have been films, books, online petitions, our Facebook page, stickers, a couple of documentaries, including that really wonderful one, the Gil Hodges story, Soul of a Champion, that was released, I think, the month before the Hall of Fame vote. And, certainly, of course, your dad is finally there because he earned it. He earned it through his playing and managing career. But I just hope that all of us, in whatever way we've been able to do, keeping his memory, keeping his story alive, that maybe that helped make sure that he wasn't forgotten, and when finally the right opportunity came, that he got the honor he deserved.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And I will say this, after the induction, I was in Josh's office, who once again is the president of the Hall of Fame. And he said to me, it'll be such a pleasure not to get those death threats anymore now that your father's in.
Oh, said, my gosh, that's a little over the top. I mean, but I guess that reflects the passion of
letters more. So he made me laugh.
That's good. And, he went in, we haven't touched on this yet, but he went in with a outstanding class. Buck O'Neill, Tony Oliva, Jim Cott, Minnie Minoso.
Yes, they were it was wonderful. I was in the elevator with Tony Oliva going downstairs, and he said to me, congratulations. I said, thank you so much. Congratulations to you as well. And he said to me, he should have gone in a long time ago just for the man he was. So that was pretty nice. Very, very nice.
Yes, indeed. I should mention that very moving and eloquent letter of support from Vin Scully that came out not long before the vote as well. And I know how much Vin loved your dad. And, more than once when I saw him interviewed, people would ask him who was his favorite player in all the years he covered the Dodgers, and he always answered with your dad's name.
Yeah, they had a very, very close relationship. He called my phone, of course, right after the voting, right after the announcement. And I spoke to him, and then I put my mother didn't remember him. But what I did was I pulled up a picture of him on my phone. And I was able to show her when he was younger, so she would remember. And she said, oh, yeah, I remember him. But he was so kind. I spoke to him for a while, and he was so thrilled, and I thanked him for his beautiful letter, his support of my dad. He said, I loved your dad, and here, a man to man, I loved your dad. And I said, I know you did, and I know my dad loved you. So, I mean, those are treasures you could not get anywhere.
Indeed.
So,
Indeed. This is a bit more challenging a program than I thought it was going to be, not because you are a challenging guest, Irene, you're anything but I keep having to fight this lump in my throat that's been there through much of the conversation. I'm thinking about when the news was made public and when Josh Rotich when he announced that the Golden Days Committee had elected 4 candidates, I thought, oh, maybe this time. And then as soon as he said an 8-time All-Star, I just began saying to myself over and over, he's in, he's finally in.
Yep.
Yeah. And I
It was a wonderful, even though I already knew it when I was watching it, I was so excited just to hear him say the words to make sure that what I heard was real. But it was
Yes, indeed. And, I'm so happy about this for so many reasons. And, of course, but one thought that occurred to me, I'm looking at a printout of his Hall of Fame plaque, which I think does a great job of listing off his on-the-field accomplishments, but I just flashed ahead to maybe, 100 years from now, after all of us are gone from this earth, and maybe a young girl and her parents go to Cooperstown. I hope they'll look at that plaque, not only look at that plaque, but listen to your speech and then have a real understanding of what a great player, what a great manager, what a great father, and what a great man he really was.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thought. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. So, Irene, is there something related to this great election and its the induction and its aftermath that I haven't asked about that you might want to share?
I just want to share what a wonderful, wonderful moment in time this was. My dad never thought he would be in the Hall of Fame. He'd say, no, those are great ball players. I'm not great. I say to him, but I don't understand. You are great. But he never thought of himself in that way, in that respect. He worked so hard at his profession, but being the man he was kind of was as important to him as playing baseball. He was so honest. He was so good. He was many, many things. And baseball, his love, was also very important to him. But he was such a wonderful man. I think that's the greatest tribute to him.
Oh, I've got to agree. Well, Irene Hodges, this has been a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad that we finally got to have this conversation celebrating your father's election and induction into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Of course, we could throw in that he's a member of a lot of other Hall of Fames. I believe both the New York State and Indiana Baseball Halls of Fame, the U.S. Marine Corps Athletic Hall of Fame, and of course the Mets Hall of Fame. But to me, and I'm sure to everyone else, it's kind of like the cherry on the sundae, the ultimate. And I've got to say, it doesn't really surprise me that he didn't think of himself as a Hall of Famer, because everything I've learned about him, he was modest, and that wasn't ever a false modesty. It was a genuine modesty. And I think kind of in this day, I mean, there are a lot of athletes of all styles, all personalities, but you think of some of the ones who are a little bit braggarts and blowhards today, and that is so not what your dad was.
No, I think his generation was different. I think they were more humble. I think they were honored to play the game of baseball. And I think that's what his generation brought to the game.
I think that's very true, but again, I'll just say I think he was one of the best exemplars of that approach.
Yes, I agree.
All right, I think it's time to wrap things up. My guest has been Irene Hodges, daughter of National Baseball Hall of Fame member Gil Hodges. Like I say, I'll never get tired of saying that. And thank you for being with us, and thanks everyone for listening to Claire's Corner on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.